Faith, believe before you see. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wanted something badly, but somewhere inside you kept thinking, what if I can't do it? Maybe you had a goal. Maybe you wanted to change your career, start something of your own, learn a new skill, improve your finances, or simply create a better life. You knew what you wanted, you even knew what you needed to do. But there was a problem. You didn't completely believe you could do it. And that's where today's conversation begins. In the first episode, we talked about desire, knowing what you want, but Napoleon Hill takes us one step further. Because once you know what you want, you have to start believing that is possible. It is called faith. Now, when you hear the word faith, you might think about religion or spirituality. But Hill's philosophy, faith is also about belief in yourself, belief in your goals, and the belief in your ability to work towards it. And here's something practical to think about. Imagine two people with exactly the same goal. They have the same opportunity, the same amount of time, the same resources. But one believes, I might be able to do this, and the other keeps telling himself, there's no way I can do this. Who has already created an advantage? The first person. Not because success is guaranteed, but because belief changes the way you approach the work. When you believe something is possible, you start looking at ways to make it happen. You learn, you ask questions, you try, you make mistakes, you adjust, you try again and again. But when you convince yourself something is impossible, you often stop before you even really start. And that's why what is repeatedly told us always matters. Think about a conversation you have with yourself every day. I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I don't have the right background. People like me don't succeed. Or even I have already tried and failed. Imagine hearing those sentences every day. Eventually, they start sounding like facts. But they're not necessarily facts, they're beliefs. And beliefs can be changed. They can be changed, they can be strengthened. That's what most practical ideas I take from Napoleon Hill. If you want to change what you do, pay attention to what you're repeatedly telling yourself. Because your thoughts influence your actions, and your actions create results. Now, I'm not saying you should simply close your eyes, imagine success, and wait for it to appear. That's not the point. F- Faith isn't a substitute for actions. You still have to learn, you still have to work, you still have to prepare, and you still have to face reality. But belief can give you the courage to begin. And sometimes that's the hardest part, beginning. Think about learning something completely new. At the start, you'll probably not at all feel very good. You make mistakes, you feel awkward, you wonder whether you are wasting your time. But if you believe you can improve, you can keep practicing. And slowly, something changes. The thing you don't imagine, the thing you couldn't do yesterday, becomes something that you can do today. And that's how confidence is often built, not by waiting for confidence to arrive, but by taking action and giving yourself evidence that you can improve. So, here's something practical I'd like you to try. Take a goal you wrote after the episode 1. You wrote it, right? Yeah. You have a definite desire. Now, writing it underneath it will help. And what you're going to write is, why do I believe I can achieve this? And don't write something vague. Write three real reasons. Maybe you have experience, maybe you have learned from previous failures, maybe you're willing to work harder, or maybe you have access to people who can help you. Maybe you're willing to learn what you don't know. Or maybe you've already overcome difficulties in the past. Find your evidence, then write one more sentence. What do you need to believe about myself to move forward? Maybe it's I learn, maybe it's I can improve, maybe I can start again, or even maybe I don't have to know everything today. That belief doesn't magically create success, but it can change your next action. And that's what matters because you don't need to believe that everything will be easy. You don't need to believe that you will never fail. And you don't need to pretend that you have no doubts. You simply need enough belief to take the next step. That's much more practical way to look at faith. Believe enough to begin, then work enough to improve, learn enough to adjust, and persistent enough to keep going. Because sometimes we make mistakes of waiting for proof before we believe ourselves. But think about almost anything you have learned in your life. There was time when you couldn't do it. Then you tried, then you practiced, you struggled, and eventually you could do. The evidence came after the efforts. So don't always wait for certainty. Don't wait until everyone approves. Don't wait until you feel completely ready. S- Just because you have to. But you have to take it with certainty and allow the journey to build with confidence. And that's what I think makes this lesson from Napoleon Hill so powerful. Desire tells you what you want, faith tells you that's worth believing in. And then action gives that belief a chance to become reality. So today, think about the goal you have chosen. Ask yourself, do I really believe I can move towards it? If the answer is no, don't beat yourself up. Stay there. Ask yourself why. Find the doubt, challenge it, build your knowledge, build your skill, take one small action, and let that action become your first piece of evidence. Because confidence doesn't always come from action. Sometimes confidence is created by action. That's today's lesson from my mentor Napoleon Hill. Don't know what you want, just believe that you can work towards it. And then prove that belief. One small action at a time. This is Life Talks with PB. Episode 1, we talked about desire, and today, episode 2, we talked about faith. And next time, we'll get another step forward. Until then, remember, you don't have to see the entire road to take the next step. Sometimes you just need enough belief to begin. So begin something new today. Thank you.